I never thought I'd end up in a place like Hollow Ridge. It was one of those forgotten specks on the map, tucked away in the misty hills of West Virginia, where the Appalachian Mountains seemed to swallow the sky. I'd grown up in the city, Chicago, with its endless noise and lights. But after my divorce, I needed a fresh start. Cheap land, quiet life, all that bullshit. So when I saw the ad for a handyman's job at the old mill on the edge of town, I packed my truck and drove east without looking back. Hollow Ridge had maybe 500 souls, if you counted the ones still breathing. Main Street was a sad strip of faded storefronts, a diner called Ma's Kitchen, a hardware store run by a grizzled vet named Earl, and a church with a steeple that leaned like it was tired of standing. The locals were friendly enough at first, waved from their porches, offered me coffee when I stopped for gas, but there was something off about their eyes, like they were always watching, waiting for me to slip up. My name's Jack Harlan, by the way, 42, ex-construction worker with a bad knee from a fall off a scaffold back in 18. I rented a cabin just outside town, up a dirt road that wound through dense woods. The place was cheap because it backed onto the old coal mine, abandoned since the 50s after a cave-in killed a dozen men. Folks said it was haunted, but I didn't buy into that crap. Ghosts? Nah, I'd seen enough real horror in the divorce courts. My first week was uneventful. I fixed up the mill for the owner, a reclusive guy named Harlan, no relation, thank God, who lived in a mansion on the hill overlooking the valley. The mill was a creaky beast, full of rusted machinery and dust that got in your lungs, but the pay was decent and it kept me busy. That's when the weirdness started. It was subtle at first. One night, as I drove home after dark, my headlights caught something on the road, a shadow that darted into the trees. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, but when I got out with my flashlight, there was nothing, just a rustle in the leaves, like laughter carried on the wind. I shook it off, probably a deer or a coyote. But the next morning, I found scratches on my truck's door, deep gouges, like from claws. Not bear claws, I'd seen those before. These were thinner, almost human. At Ma's Kitchen that afternoon, I mentioned it casually over coffee. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Rita with a smoker's rasp, froze mid-pour. "You saw it?" she whispered, glancing around like the walls had ears. "What?" I asked, chuckling to lighten the mood. She leaned in close, her breath smelling of cigarettes and mint gum. "The Skinwalker. Old native legend, but it's real round here. They say it wears the skins of the dead miners, mimics voices to lure you into the woods." I laughed it off. American folklore. Every small town had its boogeyman. Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, Mothman in Point Pleasant. Here it was skinwalkers, twisted from Navajo tales but warped by generations of hill folk. Rita didn't laugh, though. She just crossed herself and muttered something about staying indoors after sunset. That night, I couldn't sleep. The cabin creaked like an old ship, and outside the wind howled through the pines. Around midnight, I heard it, a whisper, faint but clear, calling my name. Jack Harlan. I bolted upright, grabbing the shotgun I kept by the bed. It sounded like my ex-wife's voice, Sarah, with that soft Chicago accent. But Sarah was 1,000 miles away, probably sipping wine with their new boyfriend. I stepped onto the porch, the cold air biting through my flannel. The woods were pitch black, but I swore I saw eyes glowing in the underbrush, yellow, like a cat's. I fired a warning shot into the air, the boom echoing off the hills. The eyes vanished, and silence fell. The next day, I drove to the library, a dusty room in the town hall with books older than my grandpa. The librarian, Miss Evelyn, was in her 80s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a bun that looked like it hadn't been undone since Eisenhower was president. "Skinwalkers?" she said, adjusting her glasses. "Oh, that's an old tale. Started with the Shawnee who lived here before the settlers. They believed evil spirits could possess animals or people, steal their forms. After the mine collapse in '52, folks said the dead miners' spirits got twisted. They'd call out to the living, imitating loved ones to draw them into the shafts." I skimmed the article. It was real enough. Grainy photo of the mine entrance boarded up with warnings. Elias had been the foreman, blamed for the cave-in due to cutting corners. The town cursed his name, but the legend grew that his spirit roamed, hungry for company. I thanked her and left, but doubt gnawed at me. That night, the whispers came again, closer this time. "Jack, come find me." It wasn't Sarah's voice anymore. It was my mother's, dead 5 years from cancer. Soft, pleading, like when she'd call me home for dinner as a kid. I didn't sleep. Instead, I barricaded the door and loaded the shotgun with buckshot. By morning, I was a wreck. I skipped work and headed to Earl's hardware store. Earl was a Vietnam vet, built like a tank with a gray beard and tattoos faded like old newsprint. "Scratches on your truck?" he grunted, eyeing me over his coffee mug. "Yep, that's the start. Next come the voices. Then the sightings." "What are the sightings?" I asked. He leaned on the counter, his voice low. "The walker. Looks like a man, but twisted. Skin hanging loose, eyes like coals. It preys on newcomers, folks without roots here. Feeds on fear, or so they say." "Why doesn't anyone leave?" I asked, frustration bubbling up. Earl shrugged. "Some do, most can't. Town's got a hold on you once you're here. And the mine, it's like a magnet." He sold me some bear traps and motion lights, set them up around the cabin, and stay away from the mine. I did as he said. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I rigged the traps in the wood's edge and wired the lights to a generator. The cabin lit up like a Christmas tree, but the whispers didn't stop. They evolved. Now it was my buddy Mike from construction, who died in that scaffold fall. "Jack, help me! It's dark down here!" I drank whiskey to drown it out, but around 2 a.m., the motion lights flared. I grabbed the shotgun and peered out the window. There it was, a figure at the tree line, tall and gaunt, wrapped in what looked like ragged cloth. It moved wrong, jerky, like a puppet on strings. And its face, God, its face was a mask of pale skin stretched over bones that didn't fit. I fired through the window, glass shattering. The thing howled, like a sound like tearing metal, and vanished into the dark. The next morning, one of the bear traps was sprung, but empty. Just blood on the jaws, dark, almost black. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my bags, ready to bail. But as I loaded the truck, Rita pulled up in her old Ford. "Don't go to the mine, Jack," she said, eyes wide. "That's what it wants. It lures you there." "I'm leaving town," I snapped. She shook her head. "Roads flood this time of year. The bridge is out. You're stuck till morning." I checked. Sure enough, the river had swollen from rain, washing out the only bridge. I was trapped.
That night, the storm raged. Thunder shook the cabin, rain pounding like fists. The whispers turned to screams. My mother's, Sarah's, Mike's, all begging me to come to the mine. I fought it, but something pulled me. Curiosity? Madness? I don't know. I grabbed a flashlight, the shotgun, and drove to the mine entrance, a yawning black hole in the hillside, boards rotted and broken. Deeper in, I heard it, echoing voices, not just mimics, but real ones. Whispers of the dead miners, recounting the cave-in. Eli betrayed us, cut the supports, for profit. Then a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the Skinwalker, but up close, it was worse. Skin peeling like old wallpaper, eyes glowing with unnatural light. It spoke in Eli Crow's voice, gravelly and old. "Join us, Jack. The town needs fresh blood." I raised the shotgun, but it lunged, faster than anything human. We grappled, its claws raking my arm. I fired point blank, the blast echoing like thunder. It staggered back, howling, and dissolved into mist. I ran, heart exploding in my chest, back to the entrance. But as I burst into the rain, I saw lights. Townsfolk gathered. Earl, Rita, Miss Evelyn, even Harlan, the mill owner. They weren't scared. They were smiling. "You did it," Earl said, clapping my shoulder. "You faced the walker." "What the hell?" I gasped, bleeding and shaken. Rita stepped forward. "The legend is real, but it's ours. Every few years, we need a sacrifice to keep the spirits quiet. The mine's curse, Eli's greed, it demands blood, or the whole town suffers. Floods, accidents, disappearances." Miss Evelyn nodded. "We pick newcomers, lure them with the whispers, the sightings. You fought back, but that's part of it. The walker isn't the monster, it's the bait." I backed away, but they closed in. Harlan, my boss, pulled a knife. "Your blood seals the pact. Thanks for fixing the mill, by the way." The twist hit me like a cave-in. I wasn't the victim. I was the offering. The whole town was in on it. Realistic folks hiding a dark secret rooted in folklore, using the abandoned mine as their altar. They dragged me back inside, the whispers welcoming me home. As the knife fell, I realized the voices weren't mimics anymore. They were mine, joining the chorus. And Hollow Ridge, it thrives another decade, quiet and isolated, waiting for the next fool like me.